What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here, PackersNews.com, live on Facebook late in the day on Friday. We got a good old-fashioned news dump. Late in the day, the Packers announcing the release of Justin Vogel, something we had reported earlier in the afternoon, and the signing of 2 draft picks, the punter and long snapper. Obviously, J.K. Scott from Alabama will be Vogel's replacement. The Packers are all in. Our Michael Cohen reported a little while ago that Vogel did indeed request his release after the selection of Scott in the draft. Clearly read the tea leaves, saw the deck was stacked against him. Hard to compete with a 5th-round draft pick, and asked to get out of town. And the Packers magnanimously let him have his wish. So Vogel has a decent year last year, there's no doubt about that. This could very well turn around and bite the Packers long term. Don't have to go very far back to remember the John Ryan kind of travails and travesty. But the Packers will move forward with what they've got on hand. They had their first day of rookie camp this afternoon. As Tom Silverstein so eloquently put it, everyone looked great except for the times they didn't. Hello, everyone chiming in here in the comments section. Great to see you all. Carl in Daytona Beach, man, I wish I was there. Why not have 2 punters for the summer? Well, Josh, like we said, Vogel requested his release, and Gutekunst wasn't going to hold him against his will, so to speak. I think they're confident in their evaluation in Scott. But we'll see. Like I said, could blow up on him. Should the Packers sign Cliff Averill? Jose, Averill is trying to come back from a neck injury that kept him out for much of 2017. That's not the kind of risk the Packers traditionally take. So I don't think that's a move they're going to make anytime soon. Keith, what's up, man? Did we release Raji? Yes, Brett. That's the big news. Bama, what's up, Mike? How are you? Hey, Chris. Thanks for chiming in, man. A couple of Cliff Averill questions. Paul, as I just said, his long-term neck injury is probably going to keep him out of an NFL locker room for quite some time, if not for good. Vogel will catch on somewhere else. I absolutely agree. How are the Packers looking on the offensive line? Well, Jeff, I think they're good, except for right tackle is a big question mark, simply because we don't really know what Balaga's status will be come training camp, let alone week 1. But I think the offensive line is in good shape. The big question is going to be if Balaga is going to be ready for the start of the season. May the 4th be with you as well, Alex. Thank you very much. How soon does Aaron Rodgers get his extension, Gary? My hunch now would be sooner rather than later. I thought the Falcons and Matt Ryan would probably get something done after June 1st, but they've gone ahead and signed that deal as of yesterday. Actually, I think as of this morning, officially. There's really not much more for Rodgers to wait on. Clearly, the Packers have made it abundantly clear they want to get something done sooner rather than later. So maybe we see something, by the end of OTAs and minicamp prior to the summer break. Well, we'll just see. I have to wait and see how it plays out. But I think all of the hurdles that needed to be cleared have been cleared. And now it's just a question of hammering out the details. Which draft picks got signed? Oh, sorry, Dominic. I should say that, shouldn't I? J.K. Scott and the punter and the long snapper that they took in the 7th round. So those 2 are in the fold. Spoff and... what do they say about McCray? I'm sorry, I missed your comment. Trade for Shane Ray or Dante Fowler? I don't see it, Gary. At least not until they look and see what they have through OTAs and minicamp. Now, maybe Fowler? I'd be very surprised on Shane Ray, but I don't think they really. I don't think either one of those is really a realistic possibility. Are we going to be looking at keeping Hundley? Well, Andy, I think they'll let him compete. He and Deshaun Kaiser will battle for the backup spot behind Rodgers. I tend to think that's a battle that will be won by Kaiser, and then they will end up releasing Hundley down the line. But for the time being, I think they'll keep them both in-house and let them compete for the backup job. Kennis? Is that the name? Devontae Adams got a new deal last year at the end, right prior to the cutoff for having money count towards 2017. He and Corey Linsley were signed in back-to-back days. Do you know anything about the UDFAs? Not really, other than one of them is from Milwaukee. We'll see how camp plays out. It'll be interesting to track their progress. All you need to do is trade the first rounder we got from New Orleans. I say, why not? Because you probably want to save that for next year when you have the ability to package those 2 first rounders and go get an elite player in the top 10, even 5. That's why I would say, why not? No trade value for Vogel? Probably not. Most people would kind of guess that after they selected a punter in the draft, they're not exactly going to keep 2 punters on the roster, although you never know in the NFL. But they would, most teams would suspect that they're going to release him sooner or later, so they would just wait. No need to go give up a draft pick if you know a guy's not long for a roster. Trade Cobb for defense? No one's taken on that contract. And that said, I think Cobb is going to surprise a lot of people this year. With Jordy Nelson being gone and not a real true perimeter player opposite Devontae Adams, I think Cobb's targets will increase and his production will increase. That said, even if none of that were true, I still think no team is taking on his contract. Ash from Canada saying hi. What's up, Ash? How are you, man? Are any of those undrafted free agents offensive linemen? 2 of them, I believe. Trade value for Hundley? Minimal, Chris, unfortunately, due to all the tape that he put out there last year, which a lot of it was subpar. But I wouldn't say there's no trade value at all. They still could maybe float him for a conditional 7th round pick or something like that. But it is obviously much lower than it may have been last year when they were actually offered something for Hundley during the draft and they declined. Do you think Josh Jackson has a high ceiling? I do, actually. I think he can be a really good player in this league. I think his long arms and his physicality at the line of scrimmage lend itself to the type of defense the Packers want to play under Mike Pettin. Obviously, he's done a lot more work and been a lot more productive with his eyes towards the quarterback, a lot like Casey Hayward was early in his career. Casey Hayward obviously matured into a very good perimeter man coverage corner. Obviously, that didn't happen quite in time for him to do it in Green Bay, but he's played very well in that regard out in San Diego, now LA. I think Josh Jackson has all the ability in the world and the potential to do exactly that. Maybe he'll have to take his lumps early, especially when it comes to being able to read and diagnose route trees, breaks, not being susceptible to double moves and things of that nature. All the things and tricks of the trade the NFL wide receivers are going to throw at him. But I think his ceiling is very high, and I think he can develop into a very good cover corner. Nagler and Raji for president. Nobody wants that. Is it me, or does Oren Burks look like a defensive back more than a linebacker? I don't know about that. We'll see. I mean, he is slight of frame. There's no doubt about that. He doesn't exactly have a lot of poundage on him. But that's what you need in today's NFL. You need a guy who can fly sideline to sideline, a guy who can get out there in coverage on those wide receivers and tight ends and running backs. It's the way the league has been going for quite some time. Now, it's all cyclical, and you got to think at some point teams will start beefing up again and trying to play some smash mouth football to counter a lot of those things. But a lot of teams in the NFL are employing those types of inside linebackers, especially in passing situations, whether it's the Panthers, the Cardinals, a couple other teams that are escaping me at the moment. But the Rams started it a long time ago with Mark Barron. That's just what teams have done to try and combat all this athleticism and the spread offenses that teams have been employing for the last 10 years. Who cares about 2015? Well, I saw whoever put up the grade. I think it was Forbes, the grade from the 2015 draft class. Hey, and that's fair game, man. I get that. Everyone says you got to wait 3 years to judge a draft class. Well, then you can't turn around and when someone judges a draft class after 3 years say, well, who cares about 2015? Well, we care about 2015 because you've waited the requisite 3 years to make an intelligent determination of what a draft class looks like. And 2015 was not good. Now, that said, you're going to look around the NFL, the 2015 draft as a whole was not good. There are a lot of teams that had bad drafts that year. 2012 was the same way. So, yes, the Packers had a subpar draft in 2015. There's no doubt about that. Which pick was the most Ted-like? Ooh, that's a good question. I imagine you mean this year. Oh, man. Man, that's a good question. I want to say, I don't know, obviously, I think the punter selection is probably the most Mike Sherman-like, just because it's a punter that they drafted. But most Ted-like selection this year, I'll go with Equiminius St. Brown, just because it was like this incredible value that was too good to pass up, even though they probably needed help elsewhere. They went and they just completely, just much like last year when they went with 3 running backs, they went with 3 wide receivers this year because the value was too good to pass up. That's a really good question, though. Is Green Bay set at edge rusher? As Brian Gutekunst keeps saying, you never feel like you're set or okay at a position. I think they're going to keep looking to improve. That said, there's not much that's going to be available at this point in early May. Most people that can rush the passer from the outside are on a roster. I think they're really banking on development from Vince Beagle, Reggie Gilbert, and Kyler Fackrell, I guess. We'll see. I mean, I know Clay Matthews and Nick Perry are very good football players when they are on the field. Obviously, the struggle for both of them has been staying on the field with any consistency. Matthews is coming off a really strong year. And Perry played well when he was on the field last year. Just had extended periods where he was off of it. So I think they can get by with what they've got, especially with Pettine as their coordinator. But we'll see if they try and shake the tree there at all throughout the offseason. Matt, I addressed Cliff Averill at the beginning of the video. I'll just say quickly here again for those of you catching up. He is battling a neck injury that a lot of people think will end his career. I don't see the Packers taking that chance at all. There's a story that Vogel asked to be released. Yes, our Michael Cohen reported it about an hour ago, which is what I suspected. I said that on Twitter. Did drafting a punter need Murphy's approval? Okay, Peter, here's what I'm going to say. No, but you never know. I mean, this new triangle of authority. No. The way the job description is the roster is Gutekunst's job. And whatever he says goes on the roster. So that was Gutekunst's call. Is Evans coming back? Doesn't sound like it. Now maybe they get into OTAs and minicamp and they don't like what they see, or someone suffers an injury, then maybe they make that call. But I know he hasn't officially retired yet, so he's still technically a free agent. But it doesn't seem like the Packers are showing any interest there. How does Matt Ryan's contract affect Rodgers' negotiations? Well, the guarantee is going to make things interesting because they made close to $100 million guaranteed at signing. I think it's like 94.5 or something like that. So, the Packers will look at that, and obviously Rodgers people will use that as a bit of a jumping off point. But the biggest thing it does is should spring them into action. I think that was the last signing league-wide that they were waiting on to see what kind of parameters they could use from both sides from that deal in negotiations. And now that that's done, there really isn't anything holding them up. So the biggest way it affects the negotiations between the team and Rodgers is that they really have no more excuses not to get it done. Should the Pack have tried to get Petty? No. Oh, Bryce Petty is bad, man. No. You already got Brett Hundley. Why do you want Bryce Petty? Holy cow. Can you see Moore being the starter opposite Adams in week 1? Sure. I mean, if he lights the world on fire. But that's the big unknown. That spot opposite Adams is wide open. Obviously, you think Geronimo Allison would have the leg up, so to speak. He'll undoubtedly get first crack, but he's got to hold on to the job. Any one of those rookies could jump up, and if they show consistency and are able to produce and are free of mental errors, that's the biggest thing in this offense, especially with this quarterback. Any one of them could jump up and grab that spot. Mike McCarthy's future in Green Bay, he's got to win. He's got to win big. I think it's going to take a deep playoff run for him to get a decent sized extension. Now, what happens if they go 10-6 and bow out in the wild card round? I suspect he sticks around, but who knows? I don't know how Murphy sells that. You know, he then goes into next year on his last year of his last year left on his deal, and Murphy doesn't sign him to extension. He's a lame duck going into 2019. I don't know. I would tend to think they'd probably move on at that point, but that's in the future. We'll see how this year plays out. But I do think the idea is one last big run at a Super Bowl with McCarthy. Good thing about Bryce Petty is his awesome name. Makes sense. Trade value for Montgomery? Yeah, Brett, I would think there would be a little, just because he's shown that he can be a very effective player when healthy. That issue, of course, is one big hurdle to trying to get anything for him. He hasn't been able to stay on the field at all any year that he's been in the league. So I tend to doubt it. I think the Packers would want to hold on to him. He's in the last year of his deal, which means he's dirt cheap. The last year of his rookie deal, which means he's dirt cheap. He knows the offense, and when he's on the field, he's really effective. The guy's just got to stay healthy. Who lines up this first year, Montrevious or BJ? Montrevious, but just by a nose. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to jump, but thanks so much for all the questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. They do fly by rather fast, but make sure you're checking PackersNews.com for all the latest. We've got everything about the Vogel release, everything about the first day of rookie camp, and we'll have any other news that happens to come along. Check PackersNews.com for all the latest. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot.